Vipaschit, now known as Basa, continued. The wise ones know that everything is immediately understood aright from the point of view of pure wisdom. There is no other way. We get some quite extraordinary statements in the Yoga Vasistha, and we've got one coming up in the next paragraph. There's no way that these points of view should be explained. They need to be seen for yourself. The truth needs to be seen for yourself. There's no other way. You cannot have the truth explained to you. This world appearance is the result of the infinite consciousness entertaining the notion, I am ignorant. Thus, even ignorance arises only because of the infinite consciousness. So there's a notion, I am ignorant. It's not expressed as such. A notion is something we feel. It is something that we identify with. We identify with limitation. We can identify with the infinite consciousness, but it's the nature of the infinite consciousness to identify with finite limitation. Why should this be? This is the only way that infinity can express itself. We talk about the infinity of numbers, of the counting numbers. But every number is finite. Every number is finite. To appreciate the infinity of the counting numbers, you can start counting and see how far you get. The infinite nature of the numbers is only realized by experience the finite numbers. The mirror is only appreciated when something is reflected in it. There is no limit to the number of finite things that can be reflected in the mirror. This is how its infinite nature is realized. So we have a choice. We can stay with the reflections, or we can stay with the infinite nature within which these reflections arise. They are essentially non-different. The mirror is no different from its reflections. So when we get caught up in the reflections, we get caught up in limitation, in ignorance. We get caught up in finite notions. And two particular finite notions are discussed next. No one dies here, nor is anyone born. These two notions arise in consciousness, and it appears as though death and birth are real. So there's no birth and there's no death. Doesn't this sound truly absurd? This is a corpse. It is dead. How can this be disputed? Well, we're approaching the end of the Yoga Vasistha, and we don't need to answer this. If your reaction is one of absurdity and dismissiveness, then this doesn't need to be addressed. However, if you're a spiritual practitioner, if you're an enlightenment practitioner, then there may be some things which are holding you back. And one of these might be the apparent existence of birth and death. The Yoga Vasistha itself doesn't say much to help us overcome our incredulity at this statement. So let's just see what it says. If there is death as the final end in fact and in truth, then it is indeed a most welcome and happy event. I suppose because it's the end of all your trials and tribulations. But if one who dies is capable of being seen again, then surely he was alive all the time. Thus there is no death, and by the same token there is no birth either. So this isn't a very convincing argument. If one who dies is capable of being seen again, how is this possible? If somebody dies, they're dead. It's possible that this is referring to the cultural context where reincarnation is believed, or a ghost appears, or the deceased person appears in dreams and vivid memories. But a corpse is still a corpse. You cannot dispute the nature of a corpse. It's dead. And this is fine if we're in scientific mode, if we're in social and cultural mode. But we're not in this mode. We're turning to consciousness. We're turning to the nature of consciousness, to full appreciation of our own awareness, of our own attention. And this tells us that everything that we consider to be physical and real is of a dreamlike nature. Who dies in a dream? Who is born in a dream? Is the ego personality a real thing? If it has no real existence, how can it be born or how can it die? The two events appear to be real because of the movement in consciousness. They are otherwise unreal. Consciousness gives reality to its own notions, whether we're dreaming or whether we're awake. We take it on board as real, no matter how absurd it might be, no matter how contradictory it might be. If they are thought of as real, they are real. If they are known to be unreal, they are unreal. This is another discrimination we make. We make a discrimination between birth and death, between real and unreal, or real and imaginary. This means thought alone is real. Tell me if there is any life at all devoid of consciousness. It's consciousness, it's awareness that does this discriminating between birth and death, between real and imaginary. That's what tells us what's what. In that pure consciousness there is no sorrow nor death. Then who experiences sorrow and who dies? What a whirlpool is to water, the body is to the supreme truth.